Hello and welcome to this exclusive panel discussion organized by the Economic Times. My name is Mukbil Ahmed. I'm the executive editor at the Economic Times, ETCIO, and the host for this discussion. Well, the topic for today's discussion is tech as a force for growth, driving impactful innovation. Now, let me add some context to this discussion. The coronavirus pandemic is impacting multiple industries, including healthcare, travel, financial welfare, and political stability of nations across the globe. Now, there were restrictions of movement which also affected the legal industry and highlighted the significance of digital transformation in the legal industry. In fact, nowadays, legal organizations have also not been immune to clients affecting their business activity. Many transactions are on hold and courts were closed for quite a bit. So just like most of the world, law firms also need to make this transition to a situation where the work from home environment can be facilitated, depending more than ever on technology to drive efficiency as well as connect employees. Now, this transition to the digital environment has been easier for organizations that have already been progressing on the path of digital transformation. Those organizations which have already invested heavily in technology solutions and collaboration tools over the last few years. However, the legal industry, according to some perceptions, tends to lack in this department as far as technology adoption is compared to other general businesses. So what we believe is that, life is surely going to be very different once this crisis of the pandemic diminishes to a certain extent. So the larger perspective, the larger question is, how is transformation happening in the legal industry? What would it look like post COVID-19? And the significance of taking the digital route for the legal sector. Now, as we move forward, there will be challenges ahead as the market diversifies. And we will talk about a lot of aspects such as best fit solutions, ROI, and all of that. And there couldn't have been a better time to do that because for today's discussions, we have a lineup of extremely interesting, knowledgeable, and insightful speakers. It is my pleasure to introduce the esteemed panelists. Anjali Balagopal, General Counsel, Tata Technologies; Anshul Gupta, co-founder, Mike Legal; Ashutosh Nayak, Chief Compliance Officer, Grow; Iqbal Tawseef, Corporate Counsel, Country Head, India, TTEC; Lakshman Singh, Head Litigation, Larsen and Toubro Limited; Vijay Thakral, Senior Director, Regulatory and Governance, Razorpay. Now, before we begin the discussions, I would really want to come to Mr. Lakshman Singh for his opening remarks.
Thanks, Makul, for the introduction, and I'm very glad that I have been invited for this session. And from you have stated that generally the perception is that the legal industry is lacking in adopting the technology. Though to some extent it may be correct, but I can differ on many instances because I faced the situation for the last 2 years. I am facing the situation wherein courts have been closed, but still we are able to get the adjudication proceeding, go ahead and got the decisions from the courts or from the tribunal, as the case may be. I think legal sector is considered to be in the domain of service sector, just like banking and other sector, wherein the sector professionals serve their client based on the knowledge skills, based on various areas of law like M&A, whether you are in M&A, whether you are in IPR, or whether you are in dispute resolution. Apart from the above, legal sector primarily serves the purpose from enactment of laws to delivering of justice and other resolutions to the stakeholders with the interaction of legislature, executive, judiciary, law enforcement agencies, external lawyers, other statutory authorities, such as various regulators and general public. Currently, most of the service or justice delivery system is based on face-to-face interaction and physical exchange of documents. However, with the advent of IT sector, which is also known as the fourth industrial revolution, lot of delivery system has been started to be on a paperless, and to my belief, anything which does not require taste or touch can happen on digital platform, whether it's a compliance management, litigation management, or record keeping or contract management. Hence, to me, there are immense opportunities which can be unlocked for the legal sector. However, if we see from the industry perspective, any law firm or in-house legal department of a company can have 4 or 5 broad areas of work, such as litigation management, contract management, regulatory management, compliances, MIS, and then IPR management. And so far as regarding the pandemic, yes, at the starting of the pandemic, like March and April, the courts were closed, but I think Indian judiciary has been very proactive in looking into the matters, and thereafter they adopted the technology very well, though the technology which have been adopted are diverse, like WebEx, or somewhere they have adopted Zoom, somewhere they have adopted Team, and somewhere they adopted their own technology of Government of India. So I think yes, though there are some lacking, but still we are trying to be proactive in adopting the technology.
Wonderful. That's very heartening news coming from one of the panelists, Lakshman, that the legal sector has in fact been proactive during the pandemic times. In fact, it's a widely quoted statement going around in the world of technology that the pandemic has driven more digital transformation than any other factor over the past decade or two. I totally agree with you, and that is very good news, which is coming, that the legal sector is indeed trying its best, putting its best foot forward in order to adapt to the changing times. Now coming to Vijay. So Vijay, Lakshman has made his opening remarks. According to your own mind, what opportunities can be unlocked for the legal sector through the digital route?
Thanks, Mukbil, for the question. I think for me, I think legal industry, I think, if I see the legal industry, the change drivers for legal industry. COVID-19 specifically, has accelerated the growth for legal industry. And secondly, the digital transformation will definitely recast. So for us, I think for the legal industry, I think it's a blessing in disguise. And to us, I think it has accelerated a growth to an extent that, we have never thought of, whether the courts will be virtual, at any point of time. And this has led, a radical change in the judicial industry, in the law firms industry. Like most startups have come up now, considering that they were like big law guns, law firms and lawyers who were handling the top guns, who were handling the cases. Now it is given opportunity for a lot of startups and freelancers, considering cost effectiveness as one of the criteria for selection, considering, everybody is very particular about the cost aspect. So it has opened a tender of opportunities for a lot of people, a lot of law firms. And secondly, as you can see, courts are moving online. Filings have been done online. Courts are doing virtually, taking the cases and handling the matters, which itself is a radical change for the industry. And I think eventually now the hybrid model will sustain, as we all know, a hybrid for, remote working as well as online, because you would be everything would be online and then, offline, but definitely there will be a hybrid model which will sustain, and people are now used to handling all these things virtually. So I think for a legal industry, it is more effective now, considering efficient, considering people are now particular about the cost aspects. People are particular about how to handle things online, how to submit their documents, storing, preservation, identifying the evidences. Considering a lot of software tools have come up, specifically for us to manage our, papers, your documents, evidences. Considering e-discovery as one of the tools which most of the industry players have adopted, and it is making life easy for all of us. At the same time, it is efficient, effective, and help us in managing the legal risk to an extent within our control.
Absolutely. So really, I really liked your statement that the pandemic has been a blessing in disguise, with a lot of development in the entire ecosystem around the legal sector, as you spoke about, rightly so, about the emergence of the startups and the adoption of technology. That also is very good news coming from the legal sector. Now, really going to Ashutosh from Grow for his views on the subject, that we have been discussing, how there has been tremendous digital disruption across industries the world over, and we have been also discussing about the pandemic times in particular. Now, how can rapid digitalization take place, which really leads to improved outcomes, particularly in a sector like the legal sector?
Yeah, so I was actually, I will just endorse what Mr. Thakral said. Actually, he used what I was going to say, that it's been a blessing in disguise, especially for the legal and compliance industry across various across maybe financial services or IT industry, or maybe tourism, or everywhere. We have seen a substantial recognition by the regulators, and we have seen a really pro attitude towards digitalization in compliance and legal matters. I think lots of thoughts have gone from a customer perspective. How do we engage from based on technology? We have seen, for example, we have seen the complete onboarding of a customer. We used to have this industry where legally you used to sign up forms, signatures, and you do online KYC and all that. It has been substantially changed. We have seen on online platforms who do have amazingly done a journey, and the eco culture which has been created account a particular onboarding industry. It can be Aadhaar e-sign mechanism, which was technology blessed by Information Technology Act right from 2016, when the circular started coming off. When the UIDA came, then the Aadhaar sign e-base came, which signed digitally. Then the SEBI came out with circulars on not even e-signing, but how can nomination of a customer can be done through e-sign. They studied the law where Information Technology Act did not allow online documentation for succession planning, for example. It's not allowed. Power of attorney you cannot give through online mechanism. So but nominations, first from mutual fund industry adopted the online nomination, and now the broking industry SEBI has come out with a circular. Same way RBI has been favoring the digital platforms, and various circulars which are come on the onboarding KYC. So that's what it's a tremendous engagement the industry did with thousands of onboarding of customers per day we do, along with other customers. To the same effect, while we onboard customers, there are lots of grievances and complaints what we receive. Similarly, what Mr. Lakshman said earlier, that online mechanism of IGRs, arbitration with exchanges have started online. Again, it helps us to close the matter early and to address customer needs. Apart from this, I would really say we have seen on the documentation agreement sign also. I think India accepting practices of platforms like DocuSign. We have to do sign NDAs through DocuSign mechanism. There's an acceptance. We have to see little how much is enforceability when it comes to the code, but the process has started right now. I think it's a question. It's a matter of time where even information technology is still amended, where we're still stuck on that power of attorney issues, where products like PMS and all that stuff. Still, we are in India, power of attorney. There's a physical end to it, but I think we will see to that. Especially from a depository side, if you have traded in a stock, now there's an EDS mechanism where we had deposit physically signed legally. You have to sign a depository slip, but now the mechanism of EDS come, which has little bit helped us to enable not little bit, quietly helped to execute the trades transactions very fast. Still, we await the privacy law. I think various tech platforms where we, about the client's consent, what we take, what can be taken, what can be disclosed to client, where the data can be shared to others. I think various firms, various minds are going through it. And once the privacy laws comes into picture, we'll have to rethink, review our model, review our consent mechanisms, and I'm sure lots of brains and lots of interactions, industry forums will be there once this privacy laws is on. So yeah, till date we have seen again endorse that product. Yes, it's been a blessing in disguise, this pandemic.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is the reigning sentiment across the panel, that the pandemic has been a blessing in disguise. Thanks as to Ashutosh for your remarks. Now, you really touched on something which really caught my attention, which was when you spoke about the incoming data privacy law. Now, would you want to elaborate on it?
So I think still we'd have to wait for it. I think lots of it was earlier placed. It got amended earlier again, and Mr. Justice Sri Krishna, I think it has been done a remarkable job in that. But for at least for fintech platforms, I would say what you take from customers and a specific consent. How do you build your terms and conditions? Where do you need to have for general terms and conditions, when you have a specific terms and conditions, where the data can be shared? All that I think will be a very documented process. I think it's a varied practice we have seen across industry. We have been seeing regulators also asking these questions. How do you, what type of data you capture and what type of data you share? It's something which is, but this privacy law will definitely help to standardize the process.
Right.
Once the document, if the process is established, initially it's a teething issue, but then it really helps in long term. If you want to think about scale, I think we require a proper laws to help that particular situation.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Ashutosh, that standardization is the need of the hour. And
can I add to what Ashutosh said? I just want to add what Ashutosh said too.
Sure, Vijay.
India, I think it's very, considering the size and, the people, in India, it is very, and the mindset, people are too casual in sharing their personal information here in India, especially, considering the definition of PII, as we know in the outside world, in the Western world, people in India, like, the definition of a PII, it's not, clear to Indians as such, and they are very casual in sharing their mobile number, Aadhaar card, Aadhaar number, and all these sensitive PII. So India as such, it would be easy for a law to come out. Like, they have earlier tried to come with a personal data protection bill, which Ashutosh mentioned. But, it has not been, and still they are contemplating how we need to come forward with a legislation on PII or a personal data privacy. But having said that, I think once the law also comes out, it would be very difficult for an Indian mindset to accept the PII as an Indian. And it will be a radical change. I would be waiting for that day when, Indians would be, very particular about the information, and they are very, before sharing all these things, they are aware of that there's a legislation behind it. And this information is termed as sensitive. So that would be right. A day when we would all be accepting and adopting the legislation.
Correct.
If I could just add on the whole data privacy area, right? So while I agree with the co-panelists, that the data privacy laws in India are yet to sort of come up, and we'll understand the implications. But I think even now, for companies, global companies who work across jurisdictions and deal with personal data of citizens of other countries, and specifically I'm alluding to Europe, where the GDPR regime is so prevalent, it applies to a lot of organizations in India even now. So I think the issue exists as of today in terms of using technology, the confidentiality, the data privacy concerns are still existing, and they have to be kept in mind when using these technologies in terms of whose data is being used, is that data subject to the data privacy law, and various nuances depending on which law applies.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, Anjali, on this, that as we move forward and as the technology landscape evolves and enterprises increasingly take the digital route, a lot of these things would actually be in a period of churn, where there would be fresh and new challenges that would be faced by the legal system, and then legislation would come in order to overcome them. Wonderful inputs from you, Anjali. Thank you for this interjection. Now, I really want to go to Tausif for my next question. So, we have all been discussing how important it is for the enterprises in the legal sector to really undergo this digital transformation, and that to take, for it to happen very rapidly. Now, so we have been talking about that. How can we shift focus to how can we actually use modern technology tools and several emerging technologies, to foster things like innovation, digital skills, and competencies within organizations? Tausif?
Yeah, thanks, Mukul, for that question. And I totally agree with the co-panelist who has shared their views that we are in a digital era, and technology is changing the market themselves, not the business. Okay, business is part of the market. So when it comes to legal departments, we see we have a lot of cost to incur on various kind of tools and processes outside the organizations. But now with the help of digital transformation, the in-house departments can develop their own tools while reducing the cost, and effective tools to run your strategies and meet the business goals in an efficient way. So this transformation will help us to achieve the new innovations and develop our digital skills while keeping the competency within the organization. So if you have seen, many organizations during this pandemic era has come up with their own virtual tools. Either the IT industries have developed their virtual tools themselves, and some have taken the outsourcing company's help. But they have come up with the customized tools which can help them to develop the process within the organization and meet the business goals. So this is how digital is fostering, and we can take the leverage of digitalization into this new era.
Right. Wonderful inputs coming from Tausif. Now, we have largely been addressing digital as a larger umbrella, but it does have specific technologies. Now, trying to make the discussion more granular, more specific. For this, I would want to go to Anshul. Now, Anshul, you have seen, Iqbal, Tausif talk about the various tools and technologies that have been that are being leveraged. Now, coming to a particular technology like artificial intelligence, I mean, we all know that it is one of the most bandied about, most touted, most talked about technologies of the modern era, and really something that promises to revolutionize and be really, really transformative. And it has had transformative impacts across industries, many industries. Now, how can the power of AI be used in the legal profession, particularly to enhance productivity and efficiency? Anshul?
Sure. Thanks, Mukbil. And before I jump to that question, let me just say I agree 100% with my fellow panelists about the impact the pandemic has in terms of changing the mindset, right? Because that is something we have encountered firsthand selling legal tech to various organizations. Now, coming to the question of how AI can really affect the legal industry, right? I think the first and foremost question to ask is, do we even know what AI means? Right. I think a lot of people put AI in terms of a very loose manner. I think AI is just a mechanism to achieve a certain goal, which is efficiency and time save. Right. So what we have seen is that legal departments have started to look at efficiency as a competitive advantage. Right. So where legal teams, legal departments were looked at as a cost center, has now actually shifted. And AI and legal tech has obviously played a big part. Now, where AI is very interesting in the legal industry is that the legal industry is divided into multiple processes. And each of those processes have tons of unstructured data, right? So if you look at legal research software, right, the entire idea of a contextual search is absolutely amazing, because the way you draft a question today can be very different in terms of what a case is coming up. Right. And if you see various companies in the US, UK markets, there are a few companies in India also who have tried to tackle how AI can come into the legal research market to actually speed up that process. Right. Similarly, you would see softwares that are actually predicting if you will win a case. Right. So based on a lot of data from previous cases, the system is able to learn and predict that what is the ability for you to win or lose a case. Similarly, in contracts, right, we have seen tons of softwares that are actually using AI for contract drafting. In fact, at ETLegal, we have launched a tool that using AI can actually automate the contract proofreading, right? And what we actually talk to legal teams about is the efficiency gain, right? So where today legal teams had to manually go through the document to see where all the mistakes are happening, our system is able to automatically identify that. And how that is being able to be achieved is by thousands of contracts being analyzed, right? So AI is something that is a constant process, right? It is not something that you can say that here is an AI system done and dusted. It is something that needs to constantly actually achieve the goal and learn, right? And the efficiency gains are immense, right? We have done case studies where legal teams have been able to save 75% of the contract proofreading time they were spending today, right? So I think with the legal industry, AI is something that can completely disrupt it, right? But I think first and foremost, both for the vendor and the consumer, what is important to understand is what is AI, what exactly is the solution all about, and more importantly, AI is just a mechanism to achieve a product that eventually can create an ROI for legal teams and create an impact. So that is my perspective of how AI can actually disrupt the legal industry.
Right, Anshul. Excellent points coming from you, and some points I would really want to, address while as we go along the discussion. So I absolutely agree with you that data is the backbone of any artificial intelligence tool, any machine learning tool. We absolutely agree with that. There is no doubt about that. And rightly, and that is the reason data is today being referred to as the new oil, new gold, because there is tremendous potential. And we understand that a traditional industry like the legal industry, the legal sector, has over centuries generated an exponential amount of data. Now the challenge is, how do you make that data, put a structure to that data? How do you ensure that that data is usable across departments? How do you ensure that the data is not in a very siloed form, preventing its utilization, proper utilization across departments? Your thoughts on this, Anshul?
So I think, Mukbil, a lot has to be done with the legal process you are automating, right? So if you look at, if today I have to create an AI system on legal research, the system needs to understand what legal research fundamentally is, right? Now, for example, if there is a precedent that is being followed in this case, now if my facts are similar, that means that the impact of this case might be higher than another case, even though the answer is in that case. So I think while data is there in the legal industry and it is unstructured, I think a lot also requires a lot of training of the system, right? Typically what you see, an AI system starts with at least a 60-70% accuracy. But in that case, will that make an impact for the legal team or not? And that is why you would see that AI companies, AI softwares take years before they're able to launch in the market, right? So if I take our example, we took roughly 1.5 years before we launched our contract proofreading solution, because how do you teach the system to understand what is a definition? How do you make them understand that instead of 50 lakhs, the lawyer was trying to say 5 crores, right? But that is the beauty of it, that once you have a basic accuracy level, you have created a machine learning system that as and when the lawyer keeps using, you are able to build that out, right? So at ETLegal, we have largely looked at legal processes which are standardized, but very mundane and manual, right? So in terms of IPR protection, how do we know if one brand name is similar to another brand name, right? No one has given that, no one has defined it, but that is very subjective. And that is where a lot of learning comes in, by picking out thousands of trademark oppositions that have taken place over the years to predict and teach the system that this is what a trademark infringement really means. So I think what is very important is not just data, but also to understand what is the interpretation of the data and the implementation of it.
Right. Anshul, and to your point, I would like to add that, the beauty of automation, or the beauty of artificial intelligence, is that when it automates a lot of mundane things which can be automated, and which can in itself produce a lot of efficiencies. I mean, just the other day I was talking to, a law industry person, a very high official, and he told me that, largely 70 to 80% of legal processes in the sector are very amenable to some kind of automation, which I think, would leave a lot of very creative work which can be taken up by the lawyers.
Absolutely, Mukbil. In fact, I'm glad you picked that point because, when we actually got into this industry, we were appalled by what is the lawyer spending a time on, right? So just imagine every month a lawyer needs to go through minimum 5 to 6 contracts, just going word by word to see if it is correct or not. Right?
Absolutely.
They need to be spending time on the higher level of strategization, the implication of the legal policies, not checking if, instead of 50 lakhs have they written 5 crores.
And this is something that can be easily done by a tool. I mean,
exactly.
In today's age of, digital, at least this can be done, and which would, take away a lot of load, away from the shoulders of, lawyers and particularly those in the legal fraternity, and make things much more easier.
Exactly. We actually sum this up in one line, that legal tech is a catalyst, not not competition for you. Right?
True. Absolutely.
So that is actually, like, at our end, that is how we sum up legal tech from a lawyer's perspective.
Absolutely wonderful views coming from Anshul. Lakshman, would you?
Yeah, I want to add. I think what Anshul has stated, he has stated very rightly. After my discussion with various technology people in the industry, to my mind, AI is still in its initial days of looking into the data and interpreting the data, and thereafter giving you a very accurate result. So till now, what IT industry is supporting legal is on collection of data, and then to some extent analyzing the data for the benefit of the audience or the reader. And once that stage is crossed, then the artificial intelligence will come into picture, wherein you have to put inputs, and based on the already collected data and analyzed data, the machine learning or artificial intelligence will provide you the exact result. I think, this can be done, but still a lot of research and other things has to be needed in this sector.
Right.
A lot of collaboration is also required.
Absolutely.
Legal as well as IT.
Absolutely wonderful interjection from Lakshman, and I totally agree with your views. Now, really would want to bring Anjali into the discussions. Anjali, who is from Tata Technologies. Now, Anjali, we have till now we have spoken about digital transformation, AI, machine learning, data, all of that. Now, how can contract automation tools be adapted to suit one's budget and needs?
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil. Before I go into the specifics on contract management, I just want to sort of add that as a council in any organization, and I'm sure all the co-panelists here will agree that we have to put on 2 hats. One is the business hat and one is the legal hat, right? So I think completely agree on the aspects of how technology, specifically, contract lifecycle management, case management, litigation management, all these areas can be made very effective by technology, specifically when it comes to, some AI solutions. There is an immense opportunity here. Specifically, on contract lifecycle management, in terms of automation of contracts. This is an area where legal teams struggle because of the volume of contracts, not just in terms of, reviewing, but also in terms of having records, in terms of a repository. And today, in today's times, it's all about data, right? As a counsel today, I would like to know why a certain contract was particularly signed in the past with a certain liability clause, or maybe a certain position on data privacy or an IP clause. And how do you do that? Either you have to take it manually and have a team of lawyers review it. And I think to Anshul's point, that takes a lot of time and cost, right? But if you have a solution which allows you to actually harness a lot of this data through technology and give you the output that you need. I think it allows to save cost, it allows to save time, and it in general increases efficiency. So I think automating contract reviews as such is definitely a great positive that comes out of technology. But like I said, at the same time, putting on the legal hat, it is important to sort of balance technology with interpretation and human judgment as well, right? So I think AI and technologies and all these technological solutions that enable efficiencies also have a certain limitation when it comes to areas where one needs to apply judgment, subjectivity based on the situation, based on a business situation which is current, which cannot be a data point that can be fed into a system, based on relationships with the customers. So there are a lot of these aspects which cannot be solved by technology, right? So there has to be a balance. There are areas, and I think it is important for us to streamline and focus on harnessing IT solutions to provide efficient and cost-effective access to, in terms of litigation, delivery of justice, in terms of, corporate world, in terms of corporate world to provide efficiencies and cost savings and better management of legal departments. So there has to be, I think, a more serious study in terms of considering the future of AI in law to suit different needs, right? And I think exploring this interface, having discussions like this is immensely beneficial. For instance, it would allow us to streamline court case flows, right? We all know that there are, I think, more than 4,000 court cases pending in Indian courts today. So, if we can allow that to enable better court management, this would be a great low-hanging fruit to resolve. On the other hand of the spectrum, if we could shift judges and judicial time from routine, simple, straightforward matters and apply them to more complex, intricate matters that require more human attention and involvement, right? When it comes to legal departments, reviewing smaller contracts like perhaps NDAs, analyzing contracts and giving solutions or giving data analysis on why contracts were reviewed and a decision was made based on data input. Simple things like, contract renewals. These are areas that can easily be, areas where we can use these solutions to to evaluate contracts by, automatically sort of putting in data. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think it is just about using it for the right set of activities which enable us to become more efficient. And I think it can be an extremely positive facilitator.
Yes, Anjali, I totally agree with you. In fact, I also agree with Anshul, the previous panelist, that today what I see, as the technology landscape evolves is that tools like automation, AI, they should largely be reserved for, really for activities which are really very manual, time consuming, laborious,
right,
and really not meant for a human mind. And if they comprise like 70 to 80% of a lot of processes, I think removing that, automating that 70 to 80%, that in itself, I think, it has a tremendous potential to disrupt and to really streamline and make the legal sector much more modern, efficient, lean, and agile. I totally agree with you. However, there are subjective areas which should be left to the human minds to deliver.
Just to add a quick line here, Mukbil, I think what Anjali mentioned and the way you've summed up, I think definitely answers the question of many lawyers out there that will AI replace me, right? I think you and Anjali have definitely answered in a beautiful way that it will never replace, but will actually assist in your day-to-day activities. So definitely appreciate that.
Yes, it is an assistive tool. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You can say exactly, sometimes, the young grads definitely come to us and they say that, whether we'll be redundant in terms of, considering tools and digitization coming into picture. So normally we say, tools make you efficient, but brains make you effective. So, so definitely without brains, tools will not be able to work. So it is always human brain which works behind the tool. And that's the AI which comes into the picture, as Anshul correctly mentioned. That
exactly.
It's all about what exactly.
As the creator, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And if we were to look at the evolution of technology and the evolution of the society, as a reflection of each other, we would find that there have been apprehensions earlier also, for example, when modern day computers were getting made, there were apprehensions that they would replace human beings. They did in a lot of processes, in a lot of work that was tedious, time consuming, and used to really encroach and exploit a lot of human capital. Now we see that they have largely emerged as enablers of the human mind, enablers of industry, enablers of the sector. Very excellent points coming from the panelists. Thank you, Anjali. Now, Anjali, I would really want to stick to you for another of my question, which is around another very promising technology, which is blockchain. I mean, the world is talking about it, and I think, its integration into the legal practice can be really, really disruptive, because blockchain actually hinges on distributed ledgers, something that can really, really decentralize a lot of processes, produce and infuse a lot of transparency in those processes. So Anjali, really wanted to have your view on how a promising technology like the blockchain be integrated in the legal practice, particularly with reference to automating, smart contracts, chain of custody, corporate filings, etc.
Sure. Happy to address that, Mukul. So I think just like any other technology, blockchain is very more nascent, I would say, even than AI, especially in the legal practice, right? In the banking and the fintech sector, of course, it is more prominent. But I think integrating blockchain technology in legal practice is something that would evolve in the future. Like you said, through implementing smart contracts, enabling lawyers to record events for a longer duration, specifically in the IP sector, right? When it comes to management of IPRs like patents, trademarks, copyrights, blockchain technology can help provide evidence of creation, first use. So I think a lot of these can be implemented through the blockchain technology and software, even in terms of online dispute resolution and chain of custody. There are a lot of areas in terms of evidence creation that the blockchain technology can help through easier documentation and automating some of these areas. So I think while there are certain nuances when it comes to smart contracts, that there's no specific regulatory requirements, or there are no specific rules that have been set out as of yet for this new technology. I think these are areas that will need to be looked at in terms of a lot of these areas of law as well.
So till now we have been talking about technology, which is in itself a very big area and which required considerable deliberation. Now coming to the other side of it, technology, people, process. So according to the panelists here, and for this I would want to go to Vijay from Razorpay. Of course, Razorpay is one of the most upcoming companies, digital companies. So Vijay, what do you think are the most important challenges that face organizations in the legal sector, as they try to adopt a digital first approach?
Okay, thanks, Makbul, for the question. See, the volume which we, any company like, a startup or a digital company like, Razorpay or any tech company per se, it all depends, the volume of transactions you handle. In a day, we are hitting millions of transactions on our platform in terms of the payments we process, in terms of volume and value. It is difficult in terms, considering there are a lot of agreements in place, and the number of merchants we handle, the number of websites on which the gateway works is humongous, as and the volumes are too large, and it becomes difficult sometimes for us to manage the contracts, and it becomes very, very important to how we can manage them electronically. So the challenge which we face normally, though we have initiated this process that every TNCs or the agreement has to be signed digitally, as we say, as a click wrap agreements. But the challenge comes, as a mindset of, as a merchant, as an Indian businessman, which is definitely, where is the hard copy of the agreement? I need to see upon. Or when you approach to a bank for any requirement, they also ask for, or to a legal enforcement agencies per se, all these LEAs, law enforcement agencies. They also require that, how as a company, you have been able to cover yourselves in terms of risk and liabilities. And where is the physical document which is underlying the signing of that electronic document, which is there online available. So it becomes very difficult for us to explain to these bodies and to these merchants and to the law enforcement agencies. This agreement is itself valid in the eyes of law and is equally being treated as any other physical document per se. And in a kind of a volume which we manage, which we handle, it is impracticable to handle that volume of physical papers and physical documents. So now we have been able to improvise on these processes to convert how we can manage them electronically, digitally. At the same time, they are valid. They are valid in the eyes of law. They are valid in the eyes of any agencies, enforcement agencies, or any regulator per se. So, but the way we manage, like as you I think digitally, as Anshul mentioned, and how we need to have this storage of the documents as a custodian preservation of information that we can refer to at a later point of time. We can show it as a proof of substance in terms of proof of evidence in case of any case or something. It is very important for us how we are able to store them so that they're retrievable at the end of the day at some point of time when it is required. So for a digital company, for a legal, digital transformation is you have to live with it. You have to accept it. You have to adopt it. Then only you would be able to make it along with the business. Otherwise, you are left behind the race and you will be just a bystander and you will not able to participate in that business effectively and make it a value add to the enterprise value.
Totally agree with your sentiment, Vijay, that to be in any kind of business, you have to be in the business of digital. And as Forbes said long time back, that every company of tomorrow will be a technology company. Wonderful points coming from Vijay. I would really request
Mukbil, just to add to the point of Vijay,
yes.
To get acquainted with the digital tools or to access the digital process, your partners like your clients and vendors should have the digital skills. We have seen the examples in your legal department when we send the document for signatures. So the other party is not well acquainted how to sign the document on various tools. So they will be asking for a legal help or a technical help from our side. So as we adapt the digital processes or new technologies, we also have to develop our digital skills. This is the challenge what legal department face.
Absolutely wonderful points coming from both the panelists. The first point was about the mindset and the culture. The second point, which came from Tausif, was about the skills or the lack of it, which can really pose a major challenge to people practicing in the law sector. Now, very interesting.
Mukul, just to add to what Vijay and Iqbal has stated, I think we as a lawyers and fraternity from legal people as well as law enforcement agencies have to be very careful because the IT Act itself provides that whatever has been signed digitally or electronically, except for the document which have been expressly mentioned in the IT Act, like trustees, power of attorney, will, except these type of documents, all other documents which have been signed digitally or has been communicated digitally are have an evidence reader. So it is us, the responsibility is on lawyers that they should tell the law enforcement agency or the judiciary or the lower court that yes, all the documents are in the digital source. But what is required under the IT Act, it states that whatever has been created or maintained has to be reasonably secured. And I think IT people very well know that how it has to be made available, reliable, and to be confidential. All these things has to be maintained in the computer system. And then we can really show to the authorities or agencies that these are legally enforced documents.
Right, Lakshman. So, Lakshman, you have heard Vijay and Tausif talk about a couple of challenges. You have also added your own few challenges to the list. What, according to your mind, can be done to overcome these?
I think one of the most challenging aspects of the digital technology or maintaining the document in a digital format is that whether the documents are available as per the requirement of the audience, whether those documents are reliable, whether there is any manipulation, the documents and the system, because it's not only the people, it is also technology as well as the procedure. So it is, you can say, people, procedure, and technology. PPT thing has to be very reliable and secure. Only then the people will start realizing that, yes, we can do the things on this platform or that platform. And the business management also are very much forthcoming in requesting these type of things. So I think the collaboration between the legal fraternity and the IT people has to be done to show the world, whether it's external or internal, that yes, whatever we are doing, it is reliable and confidential and can be maintained in a secure form in the system.
I totally
just
agree.
Adding on to what Lakshman said, in terms of challenges, and I think one area that I'd like to add on is change management, right? And I think
wonderful point, Anjali.
Lakshman said that the business, everyone needs to get on board. While this might be a digital transformation that the legal department is undergoing, it could be a CLM solution, it could be a litigation management solution, whatever it is, the entire organization gets affected. So when it comes to data management, just looking at it siloed will not help. Data might lie in different corners of the organization. So you have to get everybody onboarded in terms of collating that data. The other part is, what is the training required to use that software? Because at the end of the day, even if it is a contract management solution, the legal is not the only one who's going to use it. It is going to be your sales, the delivery, finance, rest of the organizations and stakeholders need to understand the tool, train themselves on the tool, become aware of it. So I think it's very important that there's a change management culture in the organization as to why we are taking on this digital technology, so why we need it, what is it going to resolve. So everybody has clear alignment as to why we need this tool and how is it going to help. At the end of the day, there has to be a business case for this. What is the ROI that we are going to achieve? So while legal is accountable for that, it is also important that rest of the stakeholders get on board and are equally responsible to be evangelists for that. So I just wanted to add that point.
Right, absolutely. And I think you have wonderfully summed it up, Anjali. And
Mukbil, to add on the point to the Anjali, that we should give the training to the various stakeholders to help us or collaborate with us on a digital transformation. The core thing, what I believe, is to overcome any challenge when we are implementing technology into the department or at the organization level. The technology itself should be user-friendly. It should not be so complex that even after the training, it becomes hard for the users to access it. So what I suggest, organizations like ETLegal, to bring some technology which should be very user-friendly, very easy to understand, because different stakeholders comes from different backgrounds and they have different level of understanding. So the core point is the technology should be user-friendly. This will be a main thing to overcome the challenges.
Right. So largely the common feeling has been that very synergistic marriage of technology, process, and people has to be brought about in order to really accelerate the pace of digitalization in an extremely traditional and important sector like the legal sector. Now, friends, we seem to be really running out of time, and we would really want to have your concluding remarks on the discussion we have had today. We can start with Vijay.
For me, I think I think revolution has already started. Revolution has already started, and it's like, who would like to be part of that ship, and who would like to join that. It's all about, and if you're left behind the race, and then it will be too late for us to accept it, to accept and adopt that thing. And that, that's my keynote, and my ending notes would be: don't lose this opportunity, be part of the race and be part of the business itself, and don't take, lawyers no more can work in silos. They have to be part of the business. And earlier the regulation should be, more, the regulation which used to come earlier was more towards lawyer centric, but now it is more customer centric. So regulatory world has made a radical change, and the government and the regulators have accepted this part of this, world, that it can't be lawyer centric more. It has to be customer centric.
True. Customer centricity, extremely crucial point coming from Vijay. And as he rightly said, be a part of the revolution, be a part of this transformative era that has come. Otherwise, you will lose the competitive edge. Wonderful points coming from Vijay. Going on to Lakshman.
I am from a legal field, hence I have to be very risk averse. So whenever I look into the data or documents or analysis of data and documents, my primary consideration is whether it will be available to me at the opportune time, and whether it will be available only to me or to the concerned audience and not to anyone else. So for me, the most important question is the cyber and information security, which includes availability, reliability, integrity, confidentiality, and traceability or recoverability of the data. If the data I can show to my business and the management that yes, whatever being maintained in the system is very much available, confidential, and cannot be accessed outside the world like any other physical document, I think then business will also realize that yes, we can go ahead with the IT tools available to legal sector. So if you can see that there are a lot of news reports of sharing of data between commercial entities without the user's express consent. So for the giving confidence to the public and the customers and the clients in general, the industry has to come forward. The law will not help because there are immense amount of data are being collected, analyzed, and interpreted every day, every hour, every second. So regulatory authorities cannot look into the every data and everything. It is us, the industry, who have to give a red line whether and how to use the data and how to get the express.
Right, Lakshman. Excellent point coming from him. Make a watertight business case. Anjali, your turn.
I'll keep it really short. I think digital transformation is not just the business or a particular function sport, it's a team sport, right? So I think lawyers are business enablers, whether you're in whichever field of litigation. So I think, or you're in the field of providing justice. So I think it's important that you align to the strategy, to the larger goal. And for that, there is no other way but to embark on this journey of, digital transformation. But of course, keeping the ethical and the legal concerns in mind, one has to balance where to sort of use technology and where not to. But at the same time, I think all in all, it is the time to embark on this journey. And I think the greatest peril of digital transformation is not to join it. So I think you have no choice.
There is no choice. Wonderful points coming from Anjali. Really, thank you. And thanks a lot for taking that very balanced perspective. Now coming on to Anshul for his parting remarks.
Sure, Mukbil. I think from my perspective, what I would like to tell the community is that the legal tech revolution has started, right? And everyone would have started seeing that a lot of tools are coming up. And what I would urge legal teams is to look within their own processes and look at aspects which are mundane, manual, because there will be solutions out there, right? And what is very important for legal teams is to not look at legal tech as an expense, but an investment which will bring them ROI. right?
Absolutely.
You invest in tools today that will help you automate and get processes much more efficiently tomorrow or day after, right? The more you delay it, someone else, like Vijay mentioned, is going to go ahead. So I think this is the time to really, it's a very exciting time to be a part of the Indian legal tech community and actually build the future of where legal processes can be automated. And I would urge legal teams to be open-minded and actually look at how technology can help them, because it will go a long way.
Right, absolutely agree with you. Automate what is possible, what can be automated, particularly processes which are manual, repetitive, mundane. And I believe there are lots of such processes in the legal sector. And once you streamline them, once you automate them, a lot of the load on the courts, on the lawyers will disappear. Wonderful point coming from Anshul. Now we go on to the next panelist, Ashutosh.
Thanks. It was a fantastic understanding from all panelists, taking all the views and understanding various aspects of from compliance to privacy to contract management. I would say earlier engagement with law enforcement agencies definitely would help it. We have come from a journey from physical signature to other e-sign, not even other side, to two-factor authorizations, right? So, it takes time from a regulator perspective, from a LEA perspective, to understand how the transition happens. Today, regulator has, if you want to see a document, you can see a physical sign. Later, he'll see Aadhaar e-sign. He will need to understand, because there's no physical signature. The Aadhaar e-sign means you have to see the log of what backend log you have as a contract with the client. In a 2FAs is still diluted by showing 2FAs. It may be your OTP, or it may be your Google login which you use. And how do you show to your LEA how we have contractually agreed with each client? Because if you want to scale it up, and India is known to scale up its operations. We live into this industry. So tech is, as I agreed with Anshul, it's a catalyst which helps you to assist you in your scaling up your business. And we as a compliance or legal people help the industry at the business side to support this. But finally, it is subject to our view, how transparent we are, what disclosures we have made to customers, and how we are customer-centric organization from a legal and contractual perspective. That's I would think.
Wonderful points coming from Ashutosh. Tech is a great catalyst and a great enabler of business. Now, the last word will be given to us by Mr. Tausif Iqbal.
Yeah, thank you, Mukbil, for this wonderful session. Just to conclude the remarks, I totally concur with the views of all the co-panelists. And from my end, I would be happy if I have 4 hands or 6 hands to complete my job and meet the business goals. This is what technology is doing for you. Leave the processes to the technology and you concentrate on meeting the business goals and delivering the justice across the organization or the nation. This is what I just want to conclude. Thank you.
Wonderful points coming from all the panelists, and which I think will go a long way in really trailing the blaze, or really showing enterprises the path to digital transformation and how to use technology so that it can really become an enabler, a catalyst to this great transformation which is happening all across the world. We now come to the end of this discussion, and it has been a wonderfully insightful discussion. And however, in the interest of time, we really need to wrap this up. Although I do feel that this discussion could have gone on and on, with so many areas, so many domains, so many developments taking place. Thank you all for joining us today and making this panel discussion extremely interactive, extremely engaging. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today.